Hey Cormac, how are you?
Hey man, not too bad. What's happening?
Last time we spoke was around about the re-release of White Feather, and we had a great old chat. But this is a very special album indeed.
I'm glad you think so.
It,
Um,
yeah, it's sort of like taken me back. Like since I got the album a while ago, I've actually been revisiting all of my albums that were sort of, I guess, came from that the same region of LA. I always used to love whenever I was in LA, I'd always used to love going through Laurel Canyon on the way down to Malibu. It's
yeah.
such a wonderful place to be, and you've captured it beautifully.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, it's a little kind of pocket of the world that's always just fascinated me. It's always had that kind of mystique around it. Right from being a kid and watching all the old kind of Woodstock
Yeah, yeah,
stuff and listening to the key artists like obviously Joni Mitchell and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Mamas and Papas and all that kind of thing. I mean it kind of it obviously starts and stops with the music itself.
yeah,
Some amazing albums to come out of that part of the world, but then um in more real terms, the answer spent Um, we got 2 months recording an album in LA, and we had to always drive up over the canyon. We were down in the valley recording, so we
yeah,
would always have had to drive up over the canyon and down into the kind of the world of the Sunset Strip for whatever we were going to, whether it was just going out for drinks or going to do some press stuff or whatever. So um, I loved those couple of months, and I loved the fact that we were so close to this kind of um, spiritual home of so much great music as well.
yeah. I mean, it was a wonderful place and it was a wonderful time, and it it's a shame that we've got to where we are now from a wonderful place like that. But when you hear music like that, I think it just reminds you of simpler times, better times. But the tracks on it, and I do want to go into some of them in great detail because I think there's some very special songs on the album. But for those people that don't know the story, obviously would you call it an accident? Did it come about by accident, or was there always a thought of doing something after you played those Neil Young shows?
Um, so just as I suppose it is a series of happy accidents that led to where we're at now. I suppose like first and foremost, I I mean I'm always writing songs, and sometimes I realize that I'm writing songs in a particular way. They kind of might
Yeah,
fit nicely into a collection of work. Um, and that was definitely the case after, like the songs that appear in the album, they weren't written with this kind of conscious, I want to write a Laurel Canyon inspired record. Um, it was just a point along the way whenever I was like, oh, there's like 10 or 15 songs here that clearly are inspired by the my love for the Laurel Canyon music. Um, maybe there's something we can do there. And then add into that the fact that then I'd been playing with this amazing group of musicians doing
yeah,
doing this project called Reharvest, where we played Harvest Moon and Harvest by Neil Young from start to finish, just a couple of theatre shows around Belfast. Um, and in the middle of that, I was kind of I wasn't that wasn't my gig. I was just kind of in doing kind of singing lead on a few songs and singing backing vocals and doing percussion and stuff. Um, And I remember just kind of being able to take a step back from that and go, there's an amazing sound here amongst these
Yeah.
musicians. Um, and in particular, the vocals, there were maybe like at any one point there were 4 or 5 vocals all harmonizing together across those gigs. Um, and I remember just thinking, I wonder, would first of all these guys be up for doing something, beyond this? And you know, is it gonna be as easy as taking the sound that we've got here
Yeah.
and taking the songs that I've got there and bringing it together? Um, so then from that point, I the answer had been in recording our seventh record, Sundowners, in a studio called Middle Farm in Devon in the south of England. And we recorded the drums in that record straight to tape. So we wanted to blend analog with
Yeah.
modern recording technique. Um, and in that studio, I noticed that the in-house guy Pete Miles, who runs the studio, he was clearly a master of this tape machine. Like it was his darling. Um, so approaching the end of that session, I already had this idea. Had that I thought I've got the songs. I might have the players if they're up for it. This this could be a great way of doing it. So I said to Pete, listen, I've got this kind of Laurel Canyon inspired project. I'd love to get into your place and do it entirely analog as you would have done in 1969. And I remember saying to him in the same conversations, like, I'm gonna have to go and try and get a bit of funding to pay for it. I don't know how much, I don't know if that's gonna be possible or whatever. And he's like, whatever you get, I'll 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 do it. It doesn't matter. He basically said it doesn't matter about the money. I love this idea. Let's do it. Um. So then at that point, whenever I knew the studio and the whole process was a goer, um, then I went and approached all the guys that I was playing with in the Neil Young stuff, and they were back within a matter of seconds, going, "Yes, absolutely, 100%. Let's fucking do it."
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, that was how it all kind of came together. And so that was the plan. Obviously, putting all these plans in place is one thing, but it has, the magic has to happen whenever you get into the studio and start recording. And I have to say, like, it was probably the most exhilarating recording experience of my life. And I know that the rest of the guys in the band, the rest of California Irish, would agree, um, in that it felt dangerous.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, we didn't know, we weren't. I don't think we were even prepared for how fully 1969 Pete was going to take it. You know, like we walked in and the screen that's always above the mixing desk with the Pro Tools,
Yeah.
sound waves, that was turned off. It was unplugged. Our drummer, who is one of the best drummers you're ever going to find, he was still interested to see whether there might be a conversation about a click track at any point. And we knew very early on that click tracks were not going to be part of this thing. You know, we were wondering how we were gonna do overdubs, and after the first song that we recorded live, we realized, okay, overdubs are going to be limited. Like if we want to get another kind of row of 4-part vocals, it's going to have to be all around the one microphone. Maybe with somebody playing a shaker in the background and holding it close to the mic whenever we want it to be heard, and holding it away when we don't want it to be heard. So there's this amazing human element to it that, like, has always been kind of the way I realize now that I wanted to record my whole life. But equally, once you get in and it goes through the Pro Tools or the Logic or whatever, and there's drop ins and there's a couple of days for tweaks and this, that, and the other. You kind of, a lot of the magic that makes this record what it is has been clearly lost on everything else I've ever recorded up to this point.
So were
So
you recording on 16 track tape?
yeah,
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 crazy.
yes, 16 tracks. So basically, all seven of us playing live.
Hmm.
The lead vocal that you hear on the record, I was recording in that moment as well. And then we'd we do one part. We generally we're good. I guess we do one live take, and Pete would come in and say, "Okay, you're starting to get it now. Let's go again." And we do another one, and everybody would agree that that felt really good. And then we do one more for luck, and then more often than not, it'd be that second take
Yeah.
in its entirety. Like I say, there was no option for taking a bit of this, taking a bit of that take, or whatever, or dropping in and fixing this or fixing that. It was okay. That feels good. Yes, it might not be perfect. There's maybe a Leslie that is getting turned off a bar later than it should, or you can hear a creak in the floorboard at that point, or the tempo isn't like metronomically precise at this point or whatever. Um, but it was not about getting into that detail. It was about, does it feel good? It feels great. Let's go in and let's use that take, and then we go back in, and the four vocalists would stand around the one mic, like I say, and we lay down our four-part harmonies. And then there was maybe one more channel, sometimes two, to put in a bit extra tambourine, or one of the songs there's a recorder duet,
Hmm.
little splashes of extra color in there. But you had to be, first and foremost, you had to get it right in the room as a group of seven human beings jamming together. That's what's amazing, and what was central to the whole recording process.
And it sounds fantastic as well. So this is a fantastic job on production, definitely. Um, who were the artists? Like, I imagine you'd listening to all kinds of music when you were younger, but I made a list just for my own my own devices of my favorite Laurel Canyon records and albums. But because it was around for, I guess, I don't know, what do we think? Sort of 68 to sort of 75, maybe, that sort of musicians making music there. There were a lot of other things in there as well, like in some of the songs. I think I Am Free, the final track, I got a bit of Tom Petty in there, for example. And Tom Petty, for me, is like the one of the artists that took that Laurel Canyon sound and sort of ran with it, albeit a bit more electric. So it's wonderful that these songs they evoke that time, but they sound fresh and new as well. Is that
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If it wasn't going to sound fresh and new, we should have just re-recorded Harvest. Like, yeah, like I say, the songs themselves weren't written with this kind of purely nostalgic tip of the hat to that little pocket of time. And also, whilst, yeah, I discovered that I had this ready-made sound that I could tap into from the Neil Young stuff. Um, I also know every musician personally and have done for many years. They're all good friends of mine, and I know what they bring to the table. In terms of I suppose an eclectic mix of quality music and musicians. And I knew that whatever we did, despite the fact that we were the process itself was more about, like, that human touch,
yeah?
that the soul within every musician that steps into the studio, trying to really use that as the foundation upon which the record's built. um the songs, yes, resemble the Laurel Canyon style, but I know and I knew that the songs themselves and the musicians that I was bringing in, we were gonna create something that has that lives in its own space, has its own sense of identity. Um, and as the name of the band would suggest, yes, it's heavily influenced by that California sound, but we are seven proud Irish musicians getting in and expressing ourselves um, in a very true way, and I think that's a beautiful combination. Um, and it was kind of it was what I was shooting for from the get go.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I think it's wonderful. I always I'm fascinated by some of the music that came out of Northern Ireland, like them and stuff like that, back in sort of like almost contemporary to this sort of sound. And I just wondered if like I'd love this sort of music with feeling and passion, music that can move you. I'd love that to come back. I think that's what we miss so much these days. But I can listen to some of those songs. Like I love Big Questions. That's just got a huge. I mean, to me, that's the sound of California almost. It's like the big blue sky and all that in the mix. And then I Am Free. I love where you take that. But some of my favorites were tracks like Old Friends, which was just so. You could imagine being there when you heard that.
yeah, funny. It's nice to hear you mention Old Friends because, like, it's if not my favorite, it's definitely one of my favorites on the record. And I was a real. That was one of the ones I had a kind of clear idea in my head of how I wanted it to sound, and probably was more of a stickler with that one in terms of kind of having the organ front row center at the beginning, and even down to there's a little is it about here actually? There's like a what's it called? Oh yeah, it's sitting. I'll show you it one second.
Oh, cool.
Um, this little thing,
Yeah,
I think it's called like a kalimba.
yeah, I think
But
so.
yeah, it's a kalimba. But I just call it a thumb harp. But um, like on whenever I was demoing these songs, I was just doing them on my own little kind of Logic setup.
Mm.
And on it, I used, I think, like, a digital xylophone to have this little pum, 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 little instrumental hook running through the song. And um, I actually went to the lengths to order a xylophone to be delivered to the studio in time for the session, and I was gonna play it and then send it back and say it wasn't right. um, and uh, in my head, my muddled head, in the build up to the session, I woke up the morning that we were to fly to England to start recording, and there was a xylophone waiting at my door in Belfast. So I got it delivered to my house instead of the studio somehow. So it was like, oh no, what am I going to do for that little thing? And I've three little boys, and they all love their music, and there's like tin whistles and banjos and tambourines and boron drums and every little kind of kid-sized instrument under the sun lying around the house. And this thing was just sitting at the door as like the full band were waiting outside. They were picking me up. We were going to drive to the airport, and I just thought, flip. I wonder would this work? The key, because I need the particular key and all the rest of it. So I just grabbed it, small, stuck it in a bag, and much to my kids' protest, like, that's my thumb harp. What are you doing? It's like, it's okay. I'll have it back to you in a week. I'll see you. And lo and behold, it was the perfect key for the little hook that we wanted. So this now is a live staple instrument in California Irish for the gig. Susie, who sings vocals across the album, she has this like little table of like this arsenal of mad percussion and little instruments like that she produces over the course of the live show, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so for old friends, yeah, like I was able to. I don't know. I had a real, like I say, I had a real, long story short, I had a real vision of how I wanted that one to sound, and by kind of torturing my fellow band members, I got that song to where I wanted it to get to. It's also why I have it on second on the record because the song, the album starts with one of the the slightly rockier songs, one of the groovier tracks. But I wanted to immediately, let the listener know that there's more to this album than just the
Yeah.
rockier stuff, So that one kind of settles the nerves, I think,
Yeah.
and kind of sets up the rest of the record really
I,
nicely.
I, I love that one. That was the one where it like when I first listened to it, I was thinking of the cover to that first Crosby, Stills, Nash album, where they're all sat on the sofa outside the house. That I don't know if you know that story. I always loved that story when
Yeah,
they famously knocked it down before they could get back to sit in the right order.
yeah, yeah.
So there was even things going on then. Some of my other favorites, I think, Can't Let Go. Like I love the duet on that. That sort of really stood out for me. But it's an album that takes you on a journey. I think that's the most important thing to me. I found myself not being able to skip a track. I sort of played all the way through whenever I put it on, and to me that's just the sound of a great album. So I guess the next question is, where are we going to see this live?
Um, that is very much a work in progress. We so the album it comes out
Oh,
in a
yeah, yeah.
in a few weeks. It was meant to come out this Friday actually, but it's gone back by 3 weeks because we got the stock through and it was damaged, so we had to send all the stock back, which was annoying. Um, but yeah, so far we've played two shows. We did one show that was down in this very kind of what word would I use to describe it? Very unique venue. We wanted to do like a free show to get the band up and running from a live angle. And yeah, we did it in amongst like at the foothills of the Mourne Mountains, which would be the mountains that I refer to in the title of the album. The mountains are my friends. In a like a there's a the, like an Ireland wide music organization, traditional music organization called Cultus in Ireland, and myself and all my brothers came up through this particular branch of the Cultus down where I'm from, down in at the foothills of the Mournes. So we took over this venue and we got a couple of friends of ours who are artists to do it up with all this kind of mad, hippie art, and just put a message out in our socials saying hashtag the mountains are my friends to be able the chance to get down to our first ever show kind of thing. And we were expecting there to be like 80 people there and 300 people turned up.
Always.
Um, so it was busy and hot and sweaty, and we had like six other acts on because loads of people got in touch saying I hear this is happening, can we play it? So it was like a little kind of mini festival almost, in this very unique place. So that was kind of like the final piece of the jigsaw in terms of the band being fully alive.
Yeah.
Um, and then we then off the back of that we played a pretty big Belfast show about 3 weeks ago. Given the fact that up to that point we only had two songs out, we played this kind of legendary venue called the Belfast um, Empire Music Hall, and again, just an amazing night. And we've got a few festivals coming up, kind of Irish festivals coming up over this summer. But the plan is in answer to your question, the plan is to release the album and just start building
Mm.
from that point onwards over the next 12 months, to pick up as many gigs as we can. Ideally, a bit of touring, and then land with some kind of pretty decent festivals this time next year, and then we'll see where we're at, But
Yeah, sounds good. We've got a wonderful Blues and Roots festival over here that I think you'd be wonderful for that. Um,
well, any contacts or anything you've got there, let me know. I mean, I obviously goes without saying, but I want to get this band out there to into as
yeah,
many ears and eyes as possible. So, um, the live show, it's just an extension of the feel that you get from the record, which is really nice as well.
yeah.
Just a great band playing songs that we're all clearly passionate about. So it's a good experience.
It sounds fantastic. Let's have a look. I made my list. I'm going to get my list now. I was just looking to see where I put it, but I put it up here of my favorite albums from Laurel Canyon. It was hard because I sort of didn't know where to draw the line, like what you
Mm.
consider. So let's see what you think of these. First one I put in there, which I think for me it's pretty much sums up the scene over there. The Birds. It's a bit country, sweetheart of the radio.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean the Birds. There's a song on the album called Julianne,
Yeah, lovely.
um, that has a 12 string guitar hook running through the whole song, and again, not just harmonies in the chorus in this one. It's wall to wall
Yeah,
4 part harmonies throughout the whole song, and yeah, the Birds they were the central reference for that particular one. To the point that the producer actually went and kind of re fixed up this old 12 string he found in the studio specifically for that album. So
cool.
um yeah, and I mean, in my head, whenever I think of the Birds, I always go to the movie Easy Rider
Yeah,
when, whenever they're on that hippie commune.
yeah.
And and it's one of these beautiful moments whenever, like, the visuals and the music just perfectly
Yeah.
blend together, so um yeah, lovely summertime vibes.
Oh, it is absolutely. Crosby, Stills, Nash. You got to have the first album, surely.
Yeah,
That's got to
yeah,
be.
absolutely. Throw the second one in there too.
Neil Young. I sort of thought, well, I can't really do the two that you did, so I put After the Gold Rush maybe in there.
Probably actually my favorite Neil Young album after the Gold
Yeah,
Rush.
I think.
um Even more so than Harvest. I don't know why. I think maybe at the point whenever I listened to After the Gold Rush, in my young teens, probably, I probably listened to Harvest to death. So it was great to hear something in that same vein, but with other songs that aren't the ones
Well,
that I'd listened to a thousand
yeah.
times.
I always had After the Gold Rush on vinyl, so I think that's why that's more important to me because I just had Harvest on cassette and it wasn't the same. So
Yeah, yeah,
Joni Mitchell was so hard to pick, but it's got to be surely Ladies of the Canyon.
yeah. Yes, definitely. And I mean, like, I'm a big fan of a lot of her stuff. Obviously, Blue is such a fantastic record as well. But Ladies of the Canyon, that's actually the first album I gravitate towards whenever I start to formulate in
Mhm.
my head what the Laurel Canyon means to me. One of the reasons, mentioning cassettes, there used
Yeah,
to be this old black cassette that sat on top of our fridge that, whenever your parents would make recordings of albums and then handwrite what's on them on the wee stickets on the sides of the cassette. Um, and one side was Joni Mitchell, Ladies of the Canyon, and the other side was Cat Stevens, Tea for the Tillerman.
oh, nice. Yeah. Another classic.
And but at that time, in my ignorance, I thought Cat Stevens was Shaking Stevens, right? So I would listen to Ladies of the Canyon and go, well, I don't want to listen to bloody Shaking Stevens. I'm going to just rewind this back. And for about a year, probably that's the way I listened to that cassette until at one point I think my dad saw me do this. He's like, "Why are you not listening to Cat Stevens? That's amazing." And I was like, "Cat Stevens is in yada yada yada." He's like, "No, that's Shaking Stevens, you idiot." And then I was more than happy then to listen to both sides of that cassette tape.
He's,
For
he's, he's got a lot to answer for, Shaky. But yes, I guess I'd throw in there as well. I don't know how you sit with James Taylor, Linda Ronstadt. I'll
yeah,
even put like only because I like them so much. I'd even probably put Little Feat in there.
yeah, absolutely. And funny, there's a friend, kind of a friend of a friend who has been in regular contact with the band since we started releasing stuff over the last few months. Who lives in Florida, and he is really good friends with one of the living members of Little Feat.
Hmm.
Can't remember which one now, but I, we're sending as soon as we have the vinyl in our hands, we're getting a few copies over to him to try and get them into the ears of those guys, you know. But yeah, you're totally right. But Little Feat, it's a combination of that beautiful slide playing, and then the presence of the jangle as well as the electric
Hmm. Yeah,
in there.
absolutely.
Again,
Yeah,
it's very emotive. It kind of it conjures up again that kind of that base level of feeling that whenever I think of Laurel Canyon music, that's what comes
I
into
think
my head.
he was from California. I think Lowell George, wasn't he? Yeah, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it was
Um,
anyway. But the one thing, like when you set me off on this search to discover the music of Laurel Canyon, I actually found some really unusual stuff out there as well. But one album I'd never heard, which I now absolutely love, only having heard it 2 weeks ago for the first time, was John Phillips
John Phillips, right? Okay,
from the
okay,
Mamas and Papas. He did an album in 1970 called The Wolf King of LA.
okay,
Don't
right,
think it went down well at the time. I don't think anyone bought it. And
okay,
his voice is a bit rough, to be honest.
okay, okay.
But there's some great songs on there.
Yeah, and funny, like you're talking about the deep diving that
Mm.
whenever you go beyond that kind of top level that we've just
Yeah.
discussed, there is all these other little hidden gems, artists that for one reason or another didn't get the same success as the
Mm.
guys we've just mentioned, but are clearly sit in there very comfortably, yeah, like even but even stuff like Crosby's
Yeah.
solo record, if I could only remember my name.
Yeah, I've got them all. I dug all those out. I didn't realize I had so many, I didn't realize he did so many, in fact. But
Yeah.
I've got quite a few of them there in front of me. So what wonderful time, wonderful music, and thank you so much for sort of bringing it back for us. It's an album I'm going to be listening to for a few good years to come. Thank you so much for taking so much time to talk to us. I really, really appreciate it. I can't wait to maybe see some dates. I'm gonna if I can send some links and stuff to the guys who do Blues Fest over here, I'd love you to get on that bill.
Send it to whoever you want, my friend. Get the
Yeah.
word out there.
Thank you so much, my friend. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I could have gone on forever, but
Whenever we get down there to play that festival, we'll sit down and have a beer and have a chat.
we will. I'll bring a record player and some vinyl.
Sweet. Sounds
Take
good, man.
take care, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, mate.
See ya.
Bye.